Hi, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Danielle.
Welcome to Unapologetically Females.
We wanted to create a fun, non-judgmental space where women can talk about their shared experiences.
Here we will normalize the challenges we face as females living in a society that dictates unrealistic and outdated expectations on what a woman should be.
Together, we hope to cultivate a supportive community of women who empower one another to courageously live unapologetically.
A quick disclaimer before we get started. Although Cindy and Danielle are licensed therapists, this podcast is not to be interpreted as therapy or a replacement of therapeutic services. It is strictly a conversation between two women about their experiences in the world. If you liked today's episode, please make sure to like and subscribe below. Also, follow us on all of our social media platforms at Unapologetically Females. With that being said, we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, welcome back. Today, our topic is talking about support systems and just the value, the importance, the need for that connection and for those supports throughout your life, whether it's becoming a new mom or going through a divorce or just any life transition. And I also think celebrating getting a promotion or, like the birthdays, like just everything, just that importance of having those key players, key people in your life that are by your side, to support you, cheer you on, pick you up when you're down, motivate you when you're, completely just, you have nothing left to give. It's like, let's go.
Yeah, no, for sure. When you say that, I think back on my life, and I have really benefited, especially in the last few months, from all of my girlfriends and my support systems in that way. But then you said, oh, when you're a new mom, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is like spot on. Some of my closest friends are the friends that I was like deep down in the trenches with when my babies were babies. Yeah. And, I really needed just an ear or sometimes it's even like running to the pharmacy for you or hey, I'm at Costco, what can I pick up?
Right.
Do you need anything?
Yeah. I have, I would say I could count on one hand, like the people that have been around for, it all, and I think that in general, women tend to lean on each other more and seem to be able to, there's just that innate nurturing trait that women have. So it's like, being able to nurture and care for and show up for one another. And I think it's less stigmatized for women to do it. I think for men, it's can be perceived as weak. But I do have, one of those people that I would, I can count on my hand is a male, and he has shown up for me in so many ways throughout my life that I've known for, since we were kids. When I say kids, like teenage years. And, he was there through like my parents' divorce and through different life transitions. And like we continue to be, best friends today and have grown, married and kids and all the things. And but he has been a great sense of support and part of that group of people that has shown up in times when I've needed, and to cheer me on. So that's been cool too. We've talked about where you're at right now currently, and, you're going through a massive life transition.
Thanks.
No problem. You forgot. Just wanted to remind you real quick.
Let's not undermine this. It's massive.
It's massive. A 25-year marriage is massive.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, separating that, who are you now and what does that look like and all of the things that come
and
with.
Who do you want to be, right?
Yeah. So what has that been like for you? Like what support-wise, that whole transition?
I definitely, I'm always appreciative of my girlfriends. I have amazing girlfriends. And in this last few months, it has just been massively.
That's still going to be the word of the podcast.
Yes.
Of this episode.
Helpful. From like just support when I'm, at my lowest low and crying and then also moving. I had to move out of a house that I've been in for a lot of years. And one of my girlfriends is in retail, and she just has that like very organized mind. And she walked into my closet and was like, holy shit, this is what depression looks like. I was like, yes, this is what depression looks like. And she just like went in and just cleaned out everything. And I was like, wow, that is a true friend. Like, you know, she zero judgment. And all of my girlfriends just like showed up, brought boxes, came, you know, back to my new place and just were awesome. And it just made me feel so lucky all over again. I feel lucky. I'm in a unique situation where there's 14 of us from college that get together every year and go on a girls trip. And we have like, you know, a text chain and all that stuff. So I feel lucky. I'm reminded all the time of how lucky I am to have the support systems and the women in my life that I do. And the divorce definitely has just magnified that.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about your annual girls trip. How many years have you guys been doing that?
Since we graduated. So we graduated in 96, so since 97.
Wow.
Sometimes it was people's weddings. That was the trip, you know. But yeah, I don't think we even missed a year during COVID. Maybe we did miss 1 year. But yeah.
Wow. Like that, I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah.
That's really neat because the commitment to that, I mean, because you guys, I'm assuming most of you or many of you have had kids and had many life transitions. And so to commit to that, even with littles and as life, because I think about that now and I'm like,
Could you do that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, I know. I'm laughing because 1 year we had a baby and her mom sleeping in the closet, but we were on a girls trip. You know, it was like, nope, you will not come.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes we have the kiddos when they're little, you know, because you can't always leave a baby with somebody else. And so, yeah, it's a really unique, really amazing situation that we were so fortunate to all find each other and still be. And it's not even like, you know how sometimes women get on each other's nerves? It's not even like that, which is just really amazing with 14 people.
Yeah.
So.
14 different personalities.
Yeah,
Like,
right, exactly.
That's
yeah.
the likelihood of someone getting annoyed with someone is
Totally.
so high. That's really neat that
Totally.
you guys have found each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, you know, the time away and all, you know, the pressures of life and work and all the things. And so I do think it's so important. And I will say I'm the first to say that I'm not great at that, like finding time to just be around, you know, my like girlfriends or just a group of friends, you know, without my husband or without my kids or, you know,
But we've also talked about this before in that you are in a more unique situation because you're the breadwinner. And so you are at work, you know, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So when you're home, that's your time to really spend with your kids and your husband, you know. So not that it's just that, I don't know, to me that just, you don't have as much time, I don't think, as some people to make those family connections like during the day and stuff.
Right. It's true because when I think about like, I want to, you know, going away for a weekend with my girlfriends, it's like that I come back on Sunday and I go to work Monday. And so now I've missed all of that time with my kids and I feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know,
guilty. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just think I've really struggled to find that balance, but I do know that I have, you know, like I said, I have that strong group of friends that I know if I need anything, like they'll show up.
Totally.
If I call or, you know, text.
And vice versa.
Right.
You're that same way for them. Yeah.
So yeah, I just think, you know, we talk about becoming a new mom and that stage of life. And I remember after I had my daughter, it was really hard. I think there were it was multi-layered, I think, of why it was so hard, partly because we had moved to a different city, like an hour and a half south of where I grew up, and my parents still, weren't there. I mean, obviously they came down for, her birth, and my mom was there as much as possible to help and all the things, but it, just wasn't the same. Right. And I just think, how people do it, they move, across the country
Totally.
and from their families and start a family and their own family. And that, first child going from no kids to one kid for me was so much harder than going from one kid to two kids. Obviously 2 kids brings like a different type of challenge,
right.
and there's, you're juggling 2 now, and there's different things that present itself. But, the actual like transition of I'm not a mom to I'm a mom was really, really challenging, for me to like navigate. And I would say, the first few months I don't know if I would clinically say I had postpartum depression, but I definitely was not myself.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about is that the enormous stress, massive stress that we go through, that it's not necessarily diagnosed as postpartum, but it's big. It's a huge life change. It's stressful. You have this life that you're now in charge of, and you're not sleeping, and you're not getting all of like the, bottom of Maslow's pyramid, right?
Yeah.
Like you have food and shelter, but you're not getting sleep. You're not getting,
right.
And that's when we need, I think, the most support is, that girlfriend to come over and be like, hey, go rest, go take a nap.
Right.
And as moms, we feel like we can't necessarily do that, right? We have to hold it all up.
Or if we if we do it, I'm always like watching the clock. Like, okay, I've got to get back. Like, it's not, it's not like completely free of,
because you're feeling guilty.
Yes.
Yeah. It's that guilt of like, oh, I'm away from my kids. And so
someone else is watching that. Like, it's a lot. I need to get back. They can't, all of that. And so
except for the person who's watching the kids, that they're not thinking that way, right? We put that on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we worry about that ourselves. I remember you were saying going from no kids to one kid. Imagine having twins.
Oh,
like,
I can't even.
2 of my best friends from college both have twins, and my one friend, she called me, and she was just in hysterics, just and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
And so I met her at the doctor's office, took the twins. She went in and, talked to the doctor and on all of the things, and ended up, going. She wouldn't mind me saying, when I ended up going on vitamin L, Lexapro, but she just hadn't slept. She hadn't had, she had help, she had family help and everything, but it was just such an enormous life change that
it's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah. And I was so grateful that she called me. Let me say that too. Like, I was so grateful that she reached out. I was so grateful that she called me. I was so grateful that she trusted me enough to take her babies and help her find the need that the help that she needed, or the need that she needed. And in a way that like brought us closer together too, right? That life moment.
Yeah. When I had Harper, there were, gosh, I think 7 of us pregnant at work.
Wow.
At the same time.
Wow.
And they were staggered. I think like babies, birth started happening in like September and ended in March of the following year. So over that, 6-7 month span of time, there were like 7 of us that had babies. And so that was obviously a unique time to let, for all of us to all be experiencing this massive change.
But how cool is that you could all go, you could probably support each other in that way of like, oh, I was up all night, just
Yeah.
the
I remember
talk.
one of my coworkers at the time, I had reached out to her and we were texting and I was like, this is so hard. She was one of the first ones to be like super vulnerable with about it and go like, this is like, what the hell happened?
right.
This
yeah.
is
Instead
so
of,
hard.
oh,
Yeah.
look at my cute baby. Life's perfect.
Yeah. And so I remember her and I going back and forth in this text and I was crying because like, her baby was now, probably 3 or 4 months, and my daughter was maybe 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
maybe weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was early on. And, I remember I was just exhausted and all the things. And she goes, oh yeah. At one point in time I Googled, how many hours of sleep deprivation does it take for you to die? She's like, I thought that, she's like, at what point does a person die from sleep deprivation? She's like, I felt that.
Oh, that's so real.
Awful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're saying exactly how I'm feeling. And then we just kept going back and forth and I'm like, nobody tells you this stuff.
No,
Nobody.
no.
And I'm like, the pregnancy books and the parenting books and like all of that shit.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
no one tells you the raw truth. And I remember again in that text thread, her and I going back and forth when we should write a book that's titled like the shit they don't say.
Yep.
And
Totally.
just tell, like this is my experience. This was her experience and say like, and nobody prepared me for this or nobody told me, how, just all the things because it's shoved down your throat of like, oh, this is just such an amazing time in life. And yes, it is. And
it's freaking hard.
So hard.
That reminds me of a true life story of myself. I had my second child and I was so tired. Like, when you're in the car and you get to a certain destination and you don't remember driving there. Like
you were
that's
on
kind of
autopilot.
tired. Totally. I'm at Target. I get my toddler in the car and I, pull out of the parking lot, driving down the street. I'm not shitting you. I wasn't sure I had taken the baby from the cart and put the baby in my car.
My gosh.
Right? So I'm driving and I'm so paranoid to turn around and look in the back seat because I'm pretty sure that I had left the baby in her little carrier in the cart in the parking lot at Target, right?
Oh my gosh.
Freaking. Thank God I did not do that. She was in the car. I didn't remember putting her in the car.
But that's just to show
That's the level of
state.
exhaustion that I was in.
And just like exhaustion, overwhelm, just completely living in, you're literally just an autopilot surviving.
Totally.
It's survival mode at that point.
I probably shouldn't have been driving, right?
Yeah.
But I had to get formula and diapers and all the things and
Right.
But that's totally. I will never forget that the level of fear, like looking in the back seat and just praying that that's not what had happened. And that also shows you like where your nervous system is at
Right.
during that time.
Yep.
Like no sleep, heightened nervous system, the
Probably not
responsibility.
eating like well, all the
No,
things.
all the things. Yeah, I was probably eating my
Dehydrated.
3-year-old's leftovers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's wild. I feel like, again, we don't talk about the raw truth around that life transition enough. I think that we've gotten better as a society. And we've definitely made great strides towards trying to normalize it. But I do still think there's so much shame and stigma around if you're not posting the picture perfect newborn photos and looking like
totally.
the, like this is the, the most amazing time of your life, I think it just sends such a dangerous message a lot of times because I think for the woman who is in it or experiencing true clinical postpartum depression or even experiencing the baby blues or just, or just really struggling, I think it's really dangerous that we put out there these fake fake
facades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, a facade of how things really, are, and they're really not that way. You know?
Totally. And you bring up a great point too. Like, I didn't really have social media when my kids were babies, right? Because this is 23 years ago. And I can't imagine, I mean, now you're raising babies with social media. I can't imagine the pressure of like watching everybody else's feeds and, and now I need to throw out everything's great. My
Right.
babies are perfect.
Yeah.
Our life is, nothing's changed here.
Yeah.
We're all doing great.
Yeah.
Like, is that hard? Or are people generally pretty supportive on comments and stuff like that?
I mean, I don't post that much, so
Yeah.
I'm not inviting that in necessarily.
Fair.
And so I'm pretty guard, and I'm private on social media. There's a lot of things. So it's
Right.
like the people that are on there are people that
your support system.
Your
support system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, no one's leaving negative comments or
Yeah.
anything like that. But yeah, and I know that, I mean, I struggled and it was really, really hard. And I have a great family, so it's has nothing to do with, whether you have all of the people and all of the, family to wrap you up and surround you and support you. Like, that life transition is really, really hard. And it's so important to have people who care for you surround you in those moments, and to be able to ask for help without shame, without,
that's
guilt.
the thing too, is I think we do feel a level of shame sometimes asking for help, or like we should be able to do it ourselves. And then, not to get psychological, but I think some of that is a little codependent, traits too, of like, well, depending on how you were raised or what your childhood looked like, thinking that you have to do it all yourself, or
Right.
that you're showing that you're capable,
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely harder for some people than others to admit when they need help.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember, so my parents split up when I was an adult. Like, I use the term adult loosely. It was, I was 20.
Yeah.
And during that time, obviously they were married at around 25 years. Like, that was really, really hard. And so, I had a close friend who was experiencing, or who had experienced a very similar situation with his parents. And it was so helpful to have someone my age,
Totally.
in the moment, who had also experienced that, could relate. Because I think that there's like, I'm 20 and it's like, okay, you're fine.
Right.
But it was life shattering for me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, it was really hard.
Whatever age you're at, you'd never want to see your parents
split up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so really leaning into my friend supports at that time was crucial, and necessary. And so I just think knowing that you have someone that will just hold space for you, listen to you, sit with you, laugh with you, cry with you, non-judgmentally,
Yeah. And true empathy, because they've been there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just so, so necessary. And so like, I think of that, cause I mean, that was a journey. That was it's not like it just happens one day and it ends the next. That was quite the journey for me, and really, rattled, I think, my whole being, honestly. And I had a lot of ups and downs with, depression and anxiety around, just all of that brought up so much. And so navigating that at the time presented its own challenges.
For sure.
But then, having friends to lean on. And that was now nearly, 20 years ago. That's crazy to say. there's no way I can be that old. Like,
No, you're not.
But 20 years ago, mental health and even social media, like that was not out there the way that it is today. And so me trying to find supports and put words to and have conversations about my own mental health was interesting. And thankfully I did have really great people in my life who I think, like, although maybe they didn't have the answer, like there wasn't an answer to give, or maybe they didn't understand it. They showed up and they didn't judge. But I remember, like, it was a weird time because I knew I was sad. I knew I was like, couldn't snap out of it, so to speak.
Sure.
So it was like, what's happening? Like, why? And to be able to try and explain that to someone else who has no reference of like the mental health world either. So, but just being surrounded, like I said, by people that cared. I do think there were some people also that were really unhealthy in my life at that time too. And I think that's,
well, and it might have magnified the realization of,
for sure,
that unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's interesting while you're talking about social media, I kind of want to point out that going through my current divorce, social media has actually been a bit of a support system for me too. In that, I follow these different Instagram accounts and stuff, and it really helps me to, it shows, it's very relatable. It helps me see that I'm not alone in my, in my experience. A lot of these pages give like encouraging advice or encouraging or ideas of ways to, look at things. And so I think often social media kind of gets a bad rap.
for sure.
But it can definitely be a support system.
Absolutely. Well, and even to speak to that, to like parenting too, like I do think that there is so much more accessibility to information to make people feel connected and not alone. And I think that depending on where you're at in life, and how you're able to receive some of that information, it can either be healthy or unhealthy for you. Because I do, I watch a lot of, obviously we are, in this field, we are in the mental health field. And so I think I watch a lot of content surrounding, parenting and, from a mental health perspective, and, how to talk to your kids and like all the things. And I think that many, many, many influencers, content creators, whatever they're called these days, many of them do it well. And then I also watch some of these individuals or people out there putting out this content and think, for parents that don't even know where to start or are really struggling or come from a background that they have no frame of reference of how to build a connection with their child. Cause that's real. Like there's just so many things, like there's so many layers to that. Right. And so I could see how somebody who maybe comes from that background going like, this isn't real. Like, this is not realistic. This isn't my life. Like, or this isn't how no one's ever spoke to me that way, or nobody's ever, like, how am I supposed to start, or how does, and so I do think that it is all very, dependent upon your own self and how you can process information and on where you're at. And so, I like, for me, I think a lot of times those videos, like I look at it and I'm like, oh yes, like, oh, you lost your shit on your kid too. Like, I get that. And I feel like that connection. And I also I think to myself, I could see how some of this content could possibly be triggering for people too. And so I just think it's so important to be aware of where you're at and not compare yourself. Like, I think we're just chronic comparers as a society. But like, that's just so important. I think for all of us to just keep in mind when we're scrolling
that everyone's situation is different
so much.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, because everybody's upbringing and backgrounds are different too. I always thought it would be so helpful, like if we could send every new mom home with a laptop and they have to check in
Yeah.
at least a few times a week
Yeah.
with some sort of professional who can say, hey, are you doing this with your baby? Hey, how are you doing? Hey, kind of, I think it too about attachment and things like that. Like, it doesn't always come natural to people,
No.
right? So here's how you might want to hold your baby. Here's how you might want to rock your baby. Here's how you might want to feed your baby, that kind of thing. Because as you said, like, we just assume that people get that and had that growing up, and then
Right.
it's just a trickle down effect, but it's not always.
Right.
And it is a learning process, and we don't all have great families with support systems and people to teach us. So
Yeah. I think I do want to speak to that, the family part. And, I will say I was I am so lucky to have a large family with, aunts and uncles and cousins and my brother, my sister-in-law, like that. I have many people in my family who have been supportive throughout my entire life. And so I'm, I come from a big Mexican family. And so we're very much in each other's business. I mean, and it was even hard for me growing up, though. Like, everyone knew everything about each other. And that was challenging for me.
Yeah, I bet. No secrets.
No
Yeah,
secrets. And I
yeah.
was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you can, as you can
totally.
imagine,
Yeah.
as things are changing,
Right.
Danielle got her period.
Right.
Well, I don't want to announce that to the entire family,
Yeah.
but the entire,
Yeah.
entire family knows.
Hey, Grandpa, guess what?
Yeah. And so, growing up, I did not like it. And now as I'm, being an adult, I can appreciate it way more. And, I do feel very lucky to have, my family that, I can call or ask for help. They are so involved in my kids' lives. I have so much help. I'm so lucky that my mom lives in my neighborhood. My dad lives a mile down the road.
Yeah,
My
that's
brothers,
amazing.
not too far either. So I just have really, really great supports in my family as well. And I know that everyone doesn't have that. And I want people, like, I think it's so important that it doesn't have to be your family. You don't have to have that.
No. Yeah. And to be totally transparent, I don't have a lot of family. My sister is amazing, has been a huge support for me. I couldn't have done any of this without her, making it through the divorce and all that. And my brother-in-law too. Makes me kind of get a little teary.
Yeah.
But it's just she and I,
Yeah.
and so that I'm so thankful for her. She's definitely enough for 10 people. She could be 10 support people. That's how good she is. But yeah, I feel that because I've never really had family other than her. And so my friends and those 14 people, that I talk about, or my girlfriends or whoever it is, have definitely become my family. And I feel incredibly lucky for that too. So
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that at the end of the day, whether they're your blood, whether they're not your blood, it's so necessary to find, whether it's that one person or,
it really only has to be one person. I used to tell my kids that growing up, like, you only really just need one person, one friend, and that person can be a life changer.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I think that's such a great message to give kids. Cause I feel like I think about my daughter, and she talks about, like, everybody like, especially last year, was like, everybody has a group, and it was like trying to fit into, like, what group do I fit into?
Right.
And I would talk to her about that. Like, you have, your one friend, and that, there's a sweet little boy in her class that she's had for now 2 years in a row. This year she has also connected with some of the little girls in her class and has her little friend group. But I just think it's so important that it doesn't have to be the number doesn't matter. It's just necessary to make those connections so that you have at least one person that's going to show up at 2 a.m. or answer the phone or, come pick up your baby in the parking lot of the doctor's office or babies, you just need one. And it's so important and necessary. And, it shouldn't be shameful. Like we want to embrace, that connection and that support system, cultivating strong support systems, healthy support systems. Healthy is the word, because
healthy.
I think that's another piece of setting boundaries with people that aren't healthy for you. And that means if it's family too, that includes family.
Yeah.
Just because they're your blood doesn't mean you have to surround yourself if they compromise your well-being. It's you got to cut them out.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that is. You're right. You're right. But I think I would love to challenge myself to figure out a time to I really admired the fact that you've done an annual girls trip for so many years, and I would love to just do an annual no kids trip with my husband.
Yeah, right.
But
we used to make time for that too when I was married, and that's important too. I
Yeah.
mean, your spouse is your support system also, right? And you need time to reconnect and to revisit and not have the kids around.
This is going to be our year, whether it's him and I, or even I want him to go out and I would love, his brother does a golf trip every year. I feel like maybe even a couple times a year he goes golfing. And I'm always I would love for my husband to be able to go do that too. Go away for a couple days. And it's important for all of us to do. So yeah,
For sure.
Without shame, without guilt, go connect. Unapologetically. Well, thank you for listening today. It's been fun. We will be back next week with a new episode. But until then, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cindy.
See you next time.